Let's go ahead and get started.
Heidi.
As you know, every week we have Edwin Eisendrath join us. He's the former CEO of the Chicago Sun-Times, hosts a radio show in Chicago on Heartland Signal, which you can pick up anywhere if you go online. And we always talk about the latest in politics. So I'm Susan Demas, the editor of Lincoln Square, and it's been a week. It's been a year. So let's go ahead and talk about let's zoom out a little bit, and talk about MAGA and what this movement is really about and what this means for all of us.
Yeah, I think we have to be honest about what's happened to America. Years of lies, of conspiracy theories, of the political organization of hatreds, which has um, long been the Republican playbook. It's gone back to Nixon, and his political team wrote about the political organization of hatreds. That's left many of our neighbors, our friends, and some family members, incapable or unwilling to take on the responsibilities of governing in a democracy. I mean, they've really lost the thread. And um, um, in today's demonstration of I don't know, of their lack of seriousness. MAGA is completely um, captivated by Pam Bondi's about face on whether or not to release the Epstein files. Right? Of course, she lied. She said, "They're on my desk. They're on my desk.
Mhm.
I'm looking at them right now. And the most transparent administration in history is going to release them." And then yesterday she said, "There's nothing here. I don't have anything. There are no files. What are you talking about? I'm not releasing anything." And I'm like normal person, right? Pam Bondi lied. The administration's lying. There are more important things to worry about. But MAGA is all in it. This is what they care about, right?
Right.
Like, I, they're just not serious people who are able to take on the responsibilities of leading a democracy. If they were, they would have rallied when that terrible bill, which is now a law, was out there because it's already closed one of their hospitals and is going to close a whole lot more. The damage is very real, and they don't care. They care about like who shot JFK in 1964, whatever it was, 63. Like that's
Right.
what they care about. They're not interested in our future, and we are in a consequential moment for at home and abroad. The unbelievable changes in technology that are happening, the stresses on a world order that's now 80 years old are so real, and they require such serious and thoughtful leaders. And instead, we have this grand clown show that wants to chase one crazy theory after another, one week after another. Susan, they stormed a local television station in Oklahoma and took down its antenna because they thought it was controlling the weather. Seriously? These people are nuts, and they shouldn't
Right.
have anything to do with our country. And I mean, there are, in fairness, there are neighbors, there are fellow citizens, but they're deeply deluded, and we have to remove them from power.
Yeah, and we're talking about the extreme of the extreme. I mean, obviously Trump won the election. There were a lot of folks who voted for him that, just wanted change. They're not diehard, MAGA people. But his core support, that 20%, 30%, I can't help but see some parallels with, we've seen authoritarian movements throughout time. And, if you look at Nazi Germany, this was an ideology that was organized on a conspiracy theory that Jews controlled everything, they had to be eradicated. And that was the justification for just atrocious acts, for the Holocaust, for so many other people, communists and the Roma and, many other, queer people being, just systematically killed. And obviously, we are not at that point yet. And I want to stress that this is not a one-to-one parallel, but that sort of insidious conspiracy is is at the heart of the MAGA movement, and this idea of the deep state and that the country is run by pedophiles, that justifies a whole lot of behavior. If these people are the most evil people on earth, the liberals, the deep state, then of course you have to take extreme actions to eradicate them. And that's the justification for why we need ICE. We need this multi-million dollar, multi-billion dollar organization at Trump's behest to arrest enemies, obviously immigrants, but we all know that's going to go way beyond that. And I feel like this real sickness of conspiracy has just been turbocharged with social media, with the internet, because ideas that used to be fringe, back in the old days of media, you would get crazy letters to the editor and they would go right in the round file. They would not make it to print. Nowadays, they are all over the internet. Actually, you can find them probably more easily than your latest New York Times article. And so, people see so many other people who believe that fluoride shouldn't be in the water, that vaccines are worse than COVID. And you get this constant reinforcement from other people out there, and it just seems to spread this ugliness a lot further than it ever would be. And now we have that they have actually captured an entire political party that is in charge of the entire country right now. So this is a pretty dire time.
It's terrible. They have no business with the levers of power, and they're not interested in it. They're not interested in governing. They're interested. I mean, they don't. That's not how they. That's not what they view government's role. I mean, look at this terrible, terrible tragedy in Texas, right? And my heart bleeds for those poor kids at that camp and their families, right? And I am impressed with the um, fortitude of the survivors, people who are out there hunting for anybody who might, still be out there, and they're working hard to do this. Which is that's like on the one hand. On the other hand, they don't believe it's the job of government to protect people. They
Mhm.
believe it's the job of a government to protect uh, money and power and to use policing to control populations that they don't like. That's
Right.
their
To go after the people they don't like, their enemies.
or to hold them, keep them in their place, right?
Mhm.
That's their view of what government is. And if that's their view of what government is, and oh, by the way, I guess in this terrible tragedy, we should also say years and years and years and years of fossil fuel paid for denial of climate change means that we're going to have more floods, bigger floods,
Right.
right? And we should prepare for it. But no, that they just don't think that's their job.
Right.
And afterwards, they're busy pointing the finger at everybody else.
Yeah.
"Oh, Joe Biden's fault," said Donald Trump before he said, "But I don't really blame him." I mean, it was a just stunning lack of any self-understanding and a stunning lack of understanding the moment we're in and what
Yeah.
the role of government should be. It's not that hard. It would have cost $50,000 to put sirens in this county that is prone to terrible flooding, right?
Yeah.
And the NOAA cuts and the cuts to the National Weather Service, the few staffers that are left that are
Mhm.
overworked managed to get warnings out, but they're understaffed to the point where they weren't able to also call people they know because they don't those people are gone and
Right.
local police and say, "Hey, get out of bed and go warn people." They couldn't do
And
that.
and now we know in the aftermath with all the FEMA cuts that most likely people are not going to need get the help that they need. I mean, and the fascinating thing in a ghastly way to me is that Trump isn't just targeting blue states. I mean, sure, he, went to California. He was going to upgrade Gavin Newsom, the governor there, during the LA fires so early in his term. Gavin actually, showed up on the tarmac and, you know, uh, showed that he wasn't afraid. That was kind of an interesting dynamic to watch because bullies usually fold when they are confronted.
Right.
But, what we've seen is that Trump has withheld FEMA help from a bunch of red states. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, his old spokesperson from his first term, was left trying to beg for assistance. Josh Hawley, the very far right senator from Missouri, where they had terrible storms and tornadoes. He begged Kristi Noem when she showed up to testify, because now FEMA's under the Department of Homeland Security. Please help my state. And so, even though Texas is obviously a huge red state, um, there's no guarantee that these people are going to need the help, get the help that they need afterwards. And these are people who need help when we have deaths that are nearing 100 people. I mean, that's just an incredible loss of life.
Susan,
Uh,
they're completely incompetent as well. I mean, and this is the problem with fascist governments everywhere and autocracies everywhere, because the people who go into government, they're not interested in doing the job. They're interested in being noticed by the king. Right?
right,
Why do you have this job? Well, maybe I can come up with something that'll get me noticed by the guy in power. Maybe then he'll tip me off before he rigs the stock market and I can make
right,
some money. But otherwise, why do the job? Because he may not want me to do what I'm supposed to do. So I'm gonna wait, be told, or find something that he notices. So they don't do the job well. I mean, for gosh sakes, FEMA, Katrina did a terrible job, right?
right.
And rebuilt it. Democrats rebuilt it, and it did a pretty good job. And now they're dismantling it again, and people will not get the help they need. Um, period. And even if he wanted to, they won't be able to because they're not competent.
And that's really the story of this Trump administration. It's pretty staggering the amount of cuts that they have made, just across the board to scientific research, gutting out departments like Health and Human Services, and experts in their field who aren't just mindless bureaucrats collecting a paycheck. These are people who keep things running, who make sure that you're able to get the health care that you need, to make sure that maybe there's a cure for many forms of cancer sooner than later, and Alzheimer's and MS and all of these degenerative diseases that impact every single one of our families.
Yeah,
Let's be
not anymore.
honest.
Not
Right,
anymore. And the whole generation of scholars, young scholars who were gonna go to work in all of those labs, who had grant money to go to work in those labs on very important questions that are impactful, not for your health and mine only, but for the future of America's leadership in science during an incredibly important moment when science is changing the world, forget it. We've had our
right,
own cultural revolution, and we're devastating research in America.
right.
Stupid belief and core to this anti-intellectual, anti-expert, let's drive everything by conspiracy doctrine that every tin pot dictator ever has used.
Right. And, look, it's been popular for my entire lifetime, for decades, to say government doesn't work, government doesn't care about you. And in any big bureaucracy, there are problems. And there are many facets of government that, don't necessarily work very well and could use improvement. But what we're seeing now is what happens when there are just wholesale cuts for the Doge implemented, with no concern for making things work, with actually destruction is the goal. Yet, at the same time, there is plenty of money, like in this budget bill that Trump just signed on July 4th, plenty of money to give tax cuts to billionaires like Elon Musk, plenty of money for his own personal police force. We have unlimited funds for that, but for research that can let us know that we need to evacuate before a hurricane, and we know that they are coming, and they are worse than ever because of climate change. No, we don't have the funds for that.
Well, we do. They don't believe in it, Susan. They fundamentally just don't believe in it. Right? That's not the side they're on. And by the way, there is a way to make government work better. But I was in the Clinton administration. We had a reinventing government
Mhm.
program led by Al Gore, and it worked. Government, we balanced the budget. We
Right,
balanced the budget. A couple years in a row, we delivered better services from our
mhm,
government. Right? And but the way you do that is you engage the folks who are working in the government, know how it works, and say, how do we do this job better? How do we do it more efficiently? And you know what? The workforce rose to the occasion. We did the job better and more efficiently. And
right.
they don't care about that.
No.
not one bit.
And, to former President Biden's credit, he made a lot of improvements in terms of things working better. And, more people had health insurance than at any other time in 2024. And we know because of this budget bill that that number is going to dramatically go down. The number of bankruptcies because people can't afford to go to the doctor to pay off those bills for the emergency room. Those are going to skyrocket again. And so I understand, like, a lot of people didn't feel like things were working very well, especially after the pandemic. People wanted to change, but this is a change that, I don't think that very many people thought they were voting for.
I hope not. I hope not. But I wanna say to the people who voted for it, if you didn't mean it, it's time to speak up and say so,
Yes.
right?
And
It's
you have
time.
an opportunity. July 17th, next mass protest,
You bet.
get out there and do it. I mean, it's not just for people who didn't vote for Donald Trump. This is for anyone who does not like the direction of this country.
And let's you and I be put a stake in the ground and say, even if you voted for him, come on in, the water's warm. You are welcome here. You may not
Yes.
all the speeches, and it is okay to disagree about a lot of things. Stand shoulder to shoulder with people who love this country, even if you disagree about some issues. We can fight about those issues after we save the democracy.
Right, exactly. Because, at the end of the day, if we lose our democracy, we're going to lose everything.
Um, I think we've lost our democracy. I don't think we I think we have to get it back. I mean, with radical gerrymandering, I mean, Speaker Johnson never has had to face voters. He had uncontested primaries in a district that was gerrymandered, so he would always
Right,
win,
in
right?
Louisiana.
It's like, so he doesn't understand what democracy is about, and as you wrote to me earlier, he symbolically gave the speaker's gavel to the president as if saying, I don't know, Congress is your court, your excellency.
Right,
We'll do whatever we're courtiers, we're not congressmen.
right.
He does
Who
not
needs
understand the difference.
who needs Article 1 of the Constitution anyway? Which, by the way, we should say, yes, we have three co-equal branches of government, but, our founding fathers saw the importance of having a strong legislature. That's why Congress has the power of the purse. That's why Congress is supposed to be the only entity that can declare war. And we've seen with presidents over the years, obviously, they want to increase executive power. We've seen an erosion of Congress's power. But now, just symbolically, handing it over to the man who wants to be king, I mean, that just made me absolutely sick to my stomach.
I mean, Congress has it's not just the executive branch has been self-aggrandizing, but Congress has been afraid to to make any decisions, and that accelerated with Citizens United. So the
Yes.
third branch of government, got rid of campaign finance reform, and let Congress get bought, and
Right,
that.
and back in 2010, and, you can see the straight line to where we are at now, where money is the absolute most important thing in elections.
Yeah. There's a wonderful sociologist at Harvard named Theda Skocpol, and she's written a bunch of stuff. She gave a lecture before the last election where she talked about, uh, the steps that led us here, both the steps to, abuse the law and then the steps that went beyond the law that were the incitement to violence. But she said, "One thing that gives me some confidence is that at least in America, there is, policing is very local. There isn't a national army. The president can't just send in troops everywhere. Oops, oops.
Mhm.
As I say, she gave that speech before the last election, and this Congress has just given the president a national army that reports to him through Christy Nome, who is as impossibly unqualified to lead an organization like the one she leads is imaginable. She who thought fine idea to go have a fashion shoot in front of prisoners at the Seacott prison, you know,
Right.
Just
She basically plays, dress up every day. One day she's a cowgirl, one day she's dressed up like ice. And, this job is not, a photo opportunity. This is a job that, you know, now she is in charge of national preparedness for disasters in the aftermath. I mean,
right.
way beyond what Homeland Security was ever supposed to be.
She's not able to do the job. She just isn't. She can shoot a dog apparently, but she can't protect us. And I'm sorry, Susan, I've lost you for a minute. There you are. I've lost you again. There you are. Okay. So she uh I worry about, as I always have, terrorism, foreign action against the United States. And we aren't protected. We've gotten rid of the parts of the government that pay attention to that so that we can pay attention to what the king wants, which is, can we throw as many people out of the country as I can? Right, that's his priority. She's going to be given an army to do it, not focused on the real threats to America, focused on fake threats. And then you have this idiot running the Defense Department that no soldier trusts,
Pete
Pete
Hegseth.
Hegseth, right? So apparently someone in his defense department said, "Yeah, those weapons that were approved to go to Ukraine, we're not sending." And then they didn't send them. And then Russia has attacked hospitals and schools and apartment buildings and killed hundreds and hundreds of people in the last 2 days. Such bloodshed that Donald Trump said, "Yeah, of course we're sending those weapons." Well, like, who's making the decisions in our government? Who's
Right.
making decisions? Obviously not Pete Hegseth. Obviously not. Uh, uh, oh, for God's sake, this is a sign of age. Marco Rubio. I mean, no, like, who's in charge?
It's easy to forget him
Yeah, isn't
because
it?
when was the last time he ever said anything publicly?
Right?
And he's the Secretary of State, plus he has like 5 other jobs as well.
Yeah. No, and none really, because it's all everybody's waiting to be told what to do by Donald Trump. So they don't do anything. They don't make decisions. But somebody, and I don't want to get all deep statey, but somebody in the Defense Department made the decision not to send those weapons. We just don't know who. Right? So it's an unaccountable, typical fascist bureaucracy.
Right. And you're absolutely right. There is mass incompetence. There is no good faith, that defines this government. There is malice and we are paying the price for that. We've all been horrified looking at what's happened in LA where Trump sent in the Marines, he sent in the National Guard. And that's to me the prototype of what we can expect from this new police force all over the country.
Okay, the last time we had an army like that in the city was, I think, Atlanta in 1865. Now, last I checked, Los Angeles did not support an armed rebellion against the government of the United States. California didn't secede from the nation. They did not say, as the Southerners did, the Declaration of Independence was wrong. All people weren't created equal. They
Mhm.
said, nope, we're in it. We're good citizens. And instead, he has this show of force by sending an army through a park where there's what, little kids playing? That's it?
Right.
But they
The
march
visual of that was
weapons
just
drawn
horrifying.
and right, as if to say, "We own you." You know what? That's a declaration of war on America, and we have to understand that, and it's coming everywhere, and
Right,
people are gonna be handed weapons they're not trained to use. It is an accident waiting to happen, a tragedy waiting to happen, and when it does, who are these MAGA guys gonna blame? Are they gonna blame, like, "Oh, it's the guys controlling the radio tower because they radioed false information to our soldiers. It's obviously the Jewish space lasers," or whatever it is, but it certainly isn't gonna be Donald Trump arming thugs, not training them, and sending them into our streets where the blame really belongs.
right. And, let's be honest, we are a heavily armed nation. I mean, there are more guns in America than there are people. And so there are going to be people who will be using their weapons against these forces. If they go to the wrong houses, if they, target, people who have an arsenal. I mean, we're looking at a lot of tragedies here that, are on the horizon, and I don't think that people are prepared for that. I mean, those of us who have children, We've long feared sending our kids off to school or summer camp or to the mall that, if they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, my daughter survived the Michigan State shooting. She was a college student there. She was in the place 5 minutes before it started to happen, and this is not an uncommon story. This is the story of America. Now, when you have a police force with God knows what kind of weapons, who knows what any of us are facing?
Well, we know it's not good, right? We know it's not good, and it's going to get worse. I don't want to just sound negative alarms, uh, because there are such assets we have as a nation. And I'm just thinking, Donald Trump has wreaked chaos on the economy in every way he possibly can, and yet Americans are enormously productive, and our companies are. It's crazy how amazingly they are adapting to his changing the rules every 4 seconds, right?
Right.
Like just the strength of Americans and America's workers and our the institutions outside of government to pick up the slack is amazing. Um, and when you think of the challenges we face, what a president, what a Congress that cared about America and recognized the talent in the country and the strength of our nation, what they could do to take us into the future in ways that would not just make us the country we dream of being, but help us lead the world to a better place. My gosh, this is such a missed opportunity because we're still chasing, as I said at the beginning, like who killed JFK and what's in the Epstein file. And, maybe I will, maybe I won't. Stay tuned. See you tomorrow. Oh, should I bomb them? Shouldn't I bomb them? Like, like I'm sorry, F off because we have a future to build together. And that's not how you do it.
Right. And that's why, as difficult as it is, we need to stand united against this government, against Trump and MAGA and what they are doing, because I truly believe that there are more of us than there are of them. And it's weeks like this that are really hard, and it's easy to get demoralized. Plus, who doesn't just want to go outside and enjoy the summer weather and just try and forget about this for a while? And, all of us probably need to do that. Once in a while, you were telling me that, you were out there on the beach, walking with your dog. We need to take a breath. I'm gonna go hike in the mountains a little bit over
That's
the weekend.
no,
Need to do that. But, come July 17th, I feel like this is the moment for us to really come together and build on what we did with the No Kings protests and say, okay, we told you that we didn't want this bill. You did it anyway. This is not the end. We are still holding you accountable. This is not the country that we want, and we are not going to stay silent.
no, and we are law-abiding, peaceful protests, um, uh, no matter what he says, no matter what troops he puts around us, law-abiding, peaceful protests, and by the way, determined to focus on the election cycle that's coming. We have New Jersey and Virginia where we are gonna knock them back where they belong.
Because
Um,
they have elections this year. We don't even have to wait till 2026.
Right. And that, we need to start demonstrating in every possible way. We aren't helpless. We won't take it. Every day they will do damage, every single day. And the country isn't safe until they are out of power. And let's just, I mean, there aren't, like people say, well, what can I do? How can I? Well, you can write your congressman. No, you can't. We saw how that went. They don't, they are in the country didn't want that bill. They rammed it down our throats anyway. So let's just get them out of power as fast as possible and make sure they understand. As tyrants everywhere respond to public pressure. They're
Mhm.
of their people. It doesn't matter, even places that don't have elections, they're terrified of their people. They should
Right.
be terrified of us. Maybe they are. Maybe that's why they're sending their armies into our cities. But sending their armies into our cities will not defeat Americans.
No.
I'm sorry, that is not who we have ever been. And
No,
it's
this
who
is
we are
our
now.
country.
You bet. You bet. And
And
the
this is we did not vote for masked men taking over our cities like they're declaring war on their own citizens.
They absolutely are declaring war on their citizens.
But
And
that is not what we are going to tolerate.
no, it is not. It is not. And that makes them, war criminals. And when the time comes, there's a place for them. There's a place for 'em.
Perhaps alligator Alcatraz.
Yeah, I was thinking Guantanamo, but sure.
Well, the
'Cause I
unfortunate thing is there will probably be many options out there.
Well, I think we have to destroy all of them. I mean, what a waste of money. They're gonna I mean, let's talk about alligator Alcatraz just for a minute. It's already flooded, right?
Right,
Useless place. What was it? It was a it was a corrupt contract for a donor of the governor of Florida, DeSantis, to get state money to build this thing. That's what it was, and they
right.
don't. Right?
Mass
It's unfit for
corruption.
humans, and nobody can stay there. It's underwater half the time. It's
Right.
got mosquitoes the size of baseballs. I mean, you put anybody in there, you got a Ninth Amendment violation for cruel and unusual punishment on day one. It can't. It's not real. It's just a corrupt deal. So we should really not let this conversation end without saying how core to this MAGA world corruption really is. Like
Corruption and
our own pocket.
cruelty, they go hand in hand, and I fundamentally believe that that is not who we are. That might be the worst part, but that does not define us, and it's our job to do better and to build something better, and this is as hard as it is.
Uh, Not you love it, I love it. We're going out there. We will demonstrate. We will organize. We will talk to everybody we know. We will not stop. These people are unfit to lead a great nation. They're unfit to lead a small nation. They're unfit to lead anything. They
Right.
should go back to their internet hole and complain about like who shot who in 1965 or whatever it is that they're worried about, and not leave our future to people who care about it.
And where can people find you? Your radio show, you have a Substack, you are everywhere.
I do. I'm not everywhere, but I do a radio show once a week. Saturdays, it's live on WCPT. You can listen to it through their website live, or it's on the podcasts and Spotify afterwards, called The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath. You could find it. You can always get it there anytime you want. And I write a Substack piece called "It's the Democracy, Stupid," and I have for years. And you can always join me there and here every week now.
Great. Well, here's hoping that we'll have at least a little better news to discuss next week, but if not, we'll be here anyway because this is a long fight, and that's just something that we have to gird ourselves for. But anyway, as always, it's a pleasure, Edwin, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Susan. Really appreciate it.